Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Season 5 of the Collective Table podcast, Songs of Summer. Today, you've got Dana and Chelsea talking with Wilder Adkins about his song, Side by Side. Hope you enjoy. Boys and girls of every color walking side by side.
Wilder, where are you?
I'm in Birmingham at my home.
You are in Birmingham, okay.
You were born and raised there?
I'm from Marietta, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta.
Yep.
I went to college here in Alabama.
My in-laws lived in Swanee, Georgia for about 15 years.
Okay.
So I know exactly where Marietta is.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump in. I love this song. I found the song, maybe like 2 years ago. And I listened to it when I need an anthem for, oh yeah, we can do this. Like, this is the dream. This is the vision, side by side. But we want to back up a little bit and kind of get to know you and what brought you to this place musically and otherwise. Kind of like, how did you find yourself here writing music?
I know growing up was a process, figuring out kind of what I was interested in, and I was real good academically, so there was kind of some pressure to do something that, made money or go be a doctor or something like that. But as I was getting older and my passions were more kind of in the performing arts, and I did some theater and stuff like that, and I was interested in writing. But I started playing guitar at 15, and kind of from the very beginning, I was more interested in kind of coming up with my own stuff than just learning other songs. And it took me a while to be able to feel happy with putting words to music. There's kind of some trepidation there at first. I think if you're good at the music part of it and everything you write, you think like, oh, this is not good enough to kind of set in stone, and I don't really want to cement this just yet. After a while, I got better at that part of it, and then just kind of became pretty prolific after that. Yeah, probably around 2008.
It is a very intimate process to write and put something out in the world. I feel like that every time I preach a sermon, it's never quite there. Like, I always kind of want to keep working or keep tweaking things because it's just such an intimate process. I mean, you're sharing your inner world with people that have things to say about it. Would you say, does your music have a spiritual, I mean, this song, Side by Side, definitely, to me, has a spiritual element, but does your music in general, is it important for you to include spirituality, or how do you kind of see that playing a role in your music?
I don't sort of force it the way I kind of describe. I heard someone say, of Van Morrison one time that just his muse was just beauty. And I kind of like that. And I kind of do the same thing. Beauty is kind of what fascinates me and what excites me. And I want to share my vision of beauty with the world. Mostly I'll just write what moves me. And so if it moves me, hopefully it moves other people too. Yeah, usually it does. Yeah, not everyone, but you can't kind of focus and try and please everyone. So kind of pick your own sort of, your own lane and kind of be yourself within that lane is kind of how I do it.
Well, I noticed I was reading on your bio that you seem to be influenced by two poets, authors, and they both had kind of what I would say a nature or environmentalist / farming feel to them. And has that been something that's been a part of your life, or is that something when you think about beauty, is it really about God's creation or the creation that exists outside?
Yeah, that is one thing that I try and put in my songs a lot. In college, when I was taking poetry classes and we talked about using specific details, there's kind of a misconception with young writers that if you put lots of details in your work, other people won't be able to relate to it because maybe they haven't heard of that street name that you're talking about or whatever. But again, it turns out really not to be the case. The more vividly you can paint a picture, the more someone else's imagination can kind of take to it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of early on figured out that I was pretty good at using nature imagery. And so it's kind of become a thing that I do a lot of. And just, yeah, I don't have a farm or anything, but I've noticed that whenever I need to kind of recharge, like hiking or just going outside is something that does that for me.
Well, I was born into the heart of Dixieland, holy rollers in the hills of Birmingham. All those summers spent just chasing lightning bugs by night.
Can we talk a little bit about your faith journey and where you are and how you got to where you are and what it was before? And there is a word that you use in your bio that we want to ask you about, but we'll let you kind of go and we'll kind of see where it flows.
Yeah, I was raised Methodist and just kind of grew up in that. And my dad went to an Episcopal church. And so when I was with him, I'd go there too, which is interesting because both kind of more lean towards the liturgical, both of those traditions.
Yeah.
In high school, most of my friend group was kind of going to a Baptist church. So I went there for a while too. And then I think in grad school too, I was hanging out with some charismatics a lot. And I was never really felt like I was a part of their crew, but I was close with a lot of them and I'd go to some of their meetings and stuff. So I feel like I've seen a lot of different things, but just all along, it's been just kind of a slow process of kind of working out for myself, what I feel about different things. And I feel like I've never really turned away from God or faith. I've had seasons of doubt, but there's been a lot of, just reworking things for my own self. The word you guys were going to ask me about was probably theosophical.
That's how we were going to say it.
Yeah. We were Googling, how do you say this?
So there's a venue here in town called Moonlight on the Mountain. And the owner would kind of send out an email about the shows that were coming up. And he would write these really elaborate descriptions of the people who were coming to play and that sort of thing. And every time that I would play there and the stuff he would write about me, I'd be like, wow, this is perfect. I'll just copy and paste this and use it in my own bio. And so he said that about me, like a true theosophical spirit or something. I thought, well, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And then my brother kind of challenged me. He was like, you're not a theosophist or whatever. I was like, am I not? I don't know. So I had to look it up as well.
That's awesome.
It's a bit mystical, Mm-hmm. What I kind of took from it was I've never been someone who studied really a lot of theology. I hear it and I absorb it, but I haven't really read deeply into theology and I didn't go to seminary. But for everything that I encounter within the faith experience, I kind of force myself to come up with my own way of thinking about it and being able to verbalize it to someone else. And so it's kind of this searcher sort of aspect to it, searcher, seeker, mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why I left it in the bio. I felt if I can explain it that way, then maybe that makes sense.
You'll fit right in here at the collective table.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's a big, our audience is they're on a variety of different places in their faith journey. A lot of them are searching, seeking, doubting, wrestling. It's a glorious place to be.
I love how you copied and paste. That is something that I would do. Why reinvent the wheel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, that helps us because we were both like, wow, we got to look this up now. We got to, and I do think so. Chelsea and I are both. We're both Methodist. Chelsea's a Methodist. She's a deacon, an ordained deacon in the United Methodist Church, and I'm in the process of that. And so, yes, it is a liturgical space, but really coming back to the mystical. I mean, a lot of, at least in my experience, what I have found is, especially in Western Christianity, we've kind of lost this mystical space or this mystical journey that was very, very relevant and is relevant in Eastern Christian religion and even in Western religion before it kind of became I guess what it is today, especially in America, I would say. I think that's completely right on target.
Yeah. And I go to probably a pretty conservative evangelical church here in Birmingham, but I'm kind of comfortable being a black sheep in a lot of ways. And at our home group, sometimes I'll pull out like poetry of Khalil Gibran to quote, and I'll be like, you guys, have you heard of this, Lebanese poet, and they'll be like, Wilder, we haven't. But we'd love to hear what you have to say anyway, so.
Good for you. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I do think so much of the faith journey is this trying to be expansive, like expanding our hearts and our minds and our understandings. And so it's so good. It's like, I know the people in my faith journey that have done exactly what you do. I've appreciated the most, because it's like, let me just think about this in a new way. And especially with you growing up, like kind of tasting all of these different expressions of faith, it's just an expansive way of kind of, okay, let me put the pieces together myself. How does this fit together for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Peace, it don't come easy. Love, it don't come free.
So maybe let's move to the song. Tell us about the song.
I was really kind of surprised with the way this song has taken off. I write a lot of love songs, I think, and I feel like my main sort of focus in writing is kind of plunging the depths of the heart and soul. And so this song is not really similar to a lot of my others. And kind of the one reason for that is I wrote it for a contest that we were having in Birmingham, kind of sponsored by UAB and the Performing Arts Center here. So they were having a contest to write a song about Birmingham. And at first I was kind of put off by that. I was like, I don't think I'm going to enter, because how I write a song just about Birmingham, is this like a tourist thing or whatever?
Right. Yeah.
But there was $1,000 prize. So I was like, well, other people were taking their chances. I thought, well, let me think about it. And I thought, what would I want to say if I'm going to write about Birmingham? And, not being from Birmingham, so I can kind of take a little bit of an outsider's perspective, where I'm not just going to praise the city and say, what a wonderful place. I think it is a cool place, and there's a lot of cool things happening here now. But obviously, for most people not from Birmingham, the only thing they will have heard of is kind of the events of the civil rights movement and what happened here.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of paint a picture of, this is a place that has a lot of darkness, and we don't need to ignore that. But I do think there's a way to move forward from that as well. And that's got to be, together, side by side, and not trying to cover anything up, but kind of moving forward just into the light, naming and owning the past sins of this place. And so that's what I set out to do. And then I guess I pulled it off.
I was going to say, so you won, right?
Yeah, I won. Yeah. The joke I always say is, then with the $1,000 prize, I was able to buy an engagement ring, and then also $700 worth of video games. But that's not exactly true.
And so when did you write the song?
I think it was around 2014.
Because a lot has changed since then, and especially after the murder of George Floyd and the uprising of Black Lives Matter, kind of how has your perspective shifted, or what kind of has changed in that? Because it really does have that feel like this hopeful, we can do it together, side by side feeling. Mm-hmm. And, some of the events over the last years have been really divisive.
Yeah. So I got to tour a little bit in 2019. And I would usually close with that song. And I was surprised this tour kind of mostly across the Midwest, and everyone really had a great response to the song. But as I was talking to people, and I always introduce the song and kind of talk about the history a little bit.
1 into September, heard the people say, things just won't get better. 4 girls died today, but we will rise up singing. Truly we shall overcome.
And a lot of the young people really didn't know a lot of the specifics, like about 16th Street Baptist Church bombing and that 4 girls died, which kind of surprised me. And I'm not sure if it's just because I'm from, Atlanta, which is kind of where Martin Luther King is from, and having lived in Birmingham, that we're kind of steeped in this history a little bit. And so I guess the Midwest, they're a little bit more removed from it. And I really don't know, having not gone to school there, if it's something they talk about or not. But Just judging from some of the people I talked to, it seemed like, yeah, they hadn't really heard about it. So I felt a little bit like an ambassador for the city in a lot of ways, getting to share this song with them. But I think it's easy for me to kind of feel like I've done my part because I wrote this song, because I have been challenged at times by some people who would say, well, what work are you actually doing? I made a post one time about, I think after George Floyd, about how, there's a lot of strife going on. And I think, we don't need to ignore the progress that has been made either. And it's obvious, though, that there's still a lot of work to be done. And someone kind of commented, well, what work are you doing? And I felt a little angered by kind of the aggressiveness of the comment, but too, I took it a bit as a challenge, because I think in some ways they were right. This still is a very segregated city, and I wrote a song that has reached a lot of people, but with my life, what am I actually doing? And am I actually trying to bridge the gap and kind of make connections with people on the other side of the tracks and that sort of thing?
That's what I was wondering growing, again, I am not from the South, didn't grow up in the South. I have been to Atlanta, but here you are, you grew up in the South, you were born in Atlanta, live in Birmingham, Alabama. What does systemic racism look like to you? What does white privilege look like to you? And have those things, have you even thought, and maybe it's now, like, it sounds like you've been thinking more about those things since perhaps over the last couple of years. Where are you at? Like, how do you feel like you're growing or learning, or what you're trying to understand in life?
I think it was easy for us, I would say, I guess, white kids growing up in the South to think that everything is okay now. We would look around and see, like, we have, we play football together, we play baseball together, and we're friends. They go to the same high school we do. They have the same opportunities, if they're not going to college, that's their choice, like, there's tons of scholarships out there. So, and I think it's easy to take for granted, just kind of cultural differences that we don't see with what goes on at home, or how they're treated by, society at large, or trying to get a job, or trying to even, I guess, get into a certain apartment building and that sort of thing. And I guess, yeah, living in Birmingham too, I think I read a stat at some point that said that it was one of the most segregated cities, and it was something I hadn't realized. Obviously, I knew that, let's say, the north side of the city is where most of the African American population lived, and the south side of the city is where most of the white people lived. But I never stopped to ask why. It was just, well, that's where they live, and this is where we live. But when you see that the money that our schools have, and kind of even the condition of the roads in our neighborhoods, and just everything that kind of adds up to a different life experience. Like you said, it has been the past few years kind of having my eyes open to these sorts of things, because it's easy to just kind of go with the flow and not have to think about it. That's why so many people kind of got upset when all the riots were happening, because it's like, I thought things were fine. We didn't hear about anything for years and years. Like, what's this big fuss about? It's evident that it really hasn't been a level playing field for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I forget who said it, but somebody said Sundays is the most segregated day of the week. Churches are notorious for this. And so what you're saying, it's hitting home for me too. There is work to be done. And I think that your song Side by Side really is an anthem for that we can do this together. And there really is this dream of someday walking all side by side. And so I think it is a beautiful vision.
So it's been interesting because you write this song and then you kind of go and, and then you have this learning over the next several years. Are you, well, I guess you haven't played, in any kind of arenas for a while because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Is that space opening up more now? Have you been able to play this song? Has there been any kind of change or different response, either in yourself or with other people?
Yeah, I kind of after the murder of George Floyd, we had a day downtown. There had been some riots here in Birmingham and a lot of windows broken downtown. And there was a day when all of them were boarded up, but they had people, black and white teams coming downtown to paint murals. And I was invited to come and kind of play music for the people painting. And so I was able to kind of play some songs, and I played side by side. And there was actually like one of the cameramen for one of the local news stations. He was down there just on his own, just filming things for his own, just on his own for fun. And he filmed me playing side by side, and he said he really loved that song. And it was good to hear, because I do worry sometimes that I wrote this song that white people love and it makes them feel good. But to hear that it can be, I think really at the time it was nice for them to hear and to see that there were a lot of, white people on their side. And as they were going through a lot, that we can't really imagine having to see that kind of stuff on TV all the time. It was it was something small, but us being down there to kind of beautify the city and help support in that way, I think it was good for all of us. And it was, the kind of unity that brings us together.
Set my heart blazing deep down in my chest, and I heard that preacher crying out from 16th Street. Till we all have freedom, there is no man truly.
As a songwriter, I've developed certain skills, at putting things into words that I think maybe when I wrote that song, I was relying on those skills of being a good writer to really piece this song together. And for a while, I really didn't play it. Like, I wrote it, I won the contest, but it really wasn't part of my repertoire when I would play shows. But it kind of started to mean more to me, seeing what it meant to other people. So the song's it's kind of changed my heart over time as well.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds as if you wrote it was for this specific purpose, but now you're seeing how it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And that has had now an effect on you. And so the song has now changed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, as a writer, that's probably one of the coolest things about writing. Not just with that song, but with others as well. Just when you put something out there into the world and it means one thing to you, but it might mean something different to different people. And being able to see just how these words take on a life of their own and how they get spread around is pretty rewarding. It's gone from being a song that I was proud that I won the contest, but now I'm really proud of just the song itself. And being able to play that for people.
What's next for you? What are you working on? What kind of projects are you planning?
So I'm pretty far along working on a lullaby album, which people had for a long time told me that my music had kind of a calming effect on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I have two children of my own, a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and so I've been kind of writing some lullabies for them, and I'm pretty far along with that process and about to send it away to someone else to mix it. And so that'll probably come out this year. And I've also got another project I'm just kind of calling family songs. So just different aspects about family, like a mother song, a father song, kind of a love songs from different perspectives, different aspects of family. So I think that one's going to come out in 2 parts. So I'll have a family songs part 1 and part 2.
That's cool.
A new stage in your life, it sounds like.
Yeah.
We're both moms of children. We totally get it. And we'll definitely be checking those out.
Yeah, it was something I thought, well, I'm not going to let being a parent change the way that I write, but it becomes a part of you.
Well, Wilder, we are
Oh.
grateful for your time today, but also the work that you put in the world. It is really beautiful and mystical and calming. And if people are looking to find out more about you, how should they do that?
Yeah, I have a website, wilderadkins.com, and I'm probably most active on Instagram on there at just Wilder Adkins, I think. Yeah, you can sign up for my email list on my website, but I only email maybe once or twice a year. Try not to bug people too much, but whenever I have new music coming out, so.
Excellent. And we'll make sure all the links are available as well so that people know how to access your music and just thank you for your very thoughtful and kind and generous spirit and the music as well. Absolutely.
And we shall overcome one day. We shall overcome. Deep in my